speak exclusively to M.J. Akbar, former Minister of State for External Affairs. In On Point 2, we decode Pentagon Chief Pete Hegseth. He says if Iran doesn't make a deal, war will continue with more intensity. And now, let's take a quick look at the headlines. Trump mocks UK and other countries amid Iran chokehold on Hormuz. Says, get your own oil, US won't help you. Takes on UK, France for being unhelpful. BJP President Nitin unveils NDA manifesto in Thiruvananthapuram, pitches aims Rs 3,000 women pension, Sabrimala CBI probe in Kerala manifesto with many other poll promises. 8 dead in stampede-like situation at temple in Bihar's Nalanda. Several people injured. Rescue efforts underway. Prime Minister Modi condoles death. Announces Rs 2 lakh ex gratia for the kin of deceased and Rs 50,000 for injured. War in West Asia has completed a month, sending the world into an energy shock. Prices are soaring and the United States is threatening boots on ground. Soldiers from 82nd Marine Expeditionary Forces have been deployed in the Gulf. The question is, how long will this war last? On this issue, without wasting any more time, let me say that I am joined by noted author and former External Affairs Minister, Mr. M.J. Akbar. Sir, thank you so much for joining us on News9.
Thank you very much, Karthika.
Thank you. And let me begin this conversation by asking you, sir, in the name of regime change and human rights, United States of America has devastated a number of West Asian and North African states. Can Iran escape this fate?
Well, Iran is already facing a terrible devastation, which we've already seen in 4 weeks of war. That has been the one visible fact. What has come as a surprise, and I think President Trump said it in the very early days, he used the word surprise, but I think that surprise has turned to shock. What has come as a shock has been Iran's capacity and Iran's capability to respond. I think for the first time, at least in my memory, the cities of Israel are being hit, are being set on fire. This is happening in Tel Aviv, this is happening in Haifa, this is happening in Beersheba, and most important, this has happened in Dimona. Dimona is the most protected, the most secure city, because Dimona is the home of Israel's nuclear capability as also its nuclear arsenal. And if Dimona cannot be protected by the famous THAAD missile, then we are seeing a paradigm shift in the nature of conflict as we have known in West Asia. The days of a one-sided conflict are over. As an Iranian leader said this afternoon, the world must accept a new regional order, and that I think is going to be one of the fundamental changes of the situation. You asked how long this war would last. A war lasts only as long as the war objective takes time to attain. And no war should be started without a very well-defined objective. In fact, the problem with this war is that Israel and America began with an objective which was quickly proven to be a very futile chase. The objective, regime change, as is said slightly mockingly, all you achieved was replacing Khamenei with Khamenei. The Islamic regime did not change. And in fact, there is an irony here that if the war drags on and if public opinion, because both Israel and America are very, very powerful democracies, there will be elections. And if the indications that are being given by opinion polls are proved valid, then there could be regime change in Tel Aviv and regime alteration in Washington before there is regime change in Tehran. So the unintended consequences of war should never be underestimated.
So, my question is, what is making Iran endure so much of pain? Is it civilizational? Is it religious? Is it the way Iran has been refashioned post 1979 Islamic revolution? What is making them take so much of it? Today, Pete Hegseth said that they have struck Iran 11,000 times.
The most powerful fact of Iran is its nationalism. Those who who thought that Iran's nationalism was synonymous with Iran's feudalism misunderstood the country. It is civilizational. Mustafa Khamenei is not, I think, an Ayatollah, which is the highest degree of clerics in the Shia hierarchy. But his first major speech to the nation was made when? Was made with Nowruz. Now, Nowruz is an ancient festival which represents the New Year, which is similar to Basant, which is similar to Ugadi. That is civilizational. And this civilizational, they get 10 days holiday over Nowruz, which they celebrate as the New Year. This civilizational of power expressed through their literature, through their culture, is an extremely important element of the Irani sense of itself. But let me tell you one major difference between how Iranis see this war and how Americans and Israelis see this war. For America and Israel, this war is part of a continuing effort to get strategic security. And their definition of strategic security is, unfortunately, an expansionist view of security. The more space you have, the more secure you are. That is the rationale behind Greater Israel. The Iranians see this as very different. They see this as an existentialist war. That if we are defeated and if we succumb, and if we are not physically devastated, but if our nation, if we are devastated, then we will be wiped out from history for this century.
So, is it?
And they know that if they want to be relevant to the future, to the immediate future, and to be a part of the security structure of both the region and thereby the world, then they must prove their capacity, and they have done so. People have never understood that Iran's technical capabilities arise out of 4% of GDP. 4% of GDP is invested in R&D. They have 2,000 universities, which is actually more than the number of universities in India. And their universities, Tehran is a city with the largest number of PhDs. And mind you, these are not bogus PhDs, they're genuine PhDs. And this strength of the country is very evident. We are witnessing at the moment what I described, particularly from the American side, the fury of frustration.
Like an exhausted superpower?
It's a superpower which is coming to terms with what is the unacceptable, coming to terms with the ability of a nation to stand up and said, we didn't ask for this war, but since you started it, it's not going to be easy for you.
So let me ask you, Trump was in his second tenure obsessed with China. Why did he get so engrossed with West Asia suddenly? And do you think that, Trump is chasing the Israeli red lines in Iran? Or in your opinion, are these really the American red lines?
Well, they at some point the two lines blur into each other, but certainly this one was influenced very much more by Israel's persistent view that Iran represented easy pickings. Maybe they were misled by the performance of Iran in the 2025 war, the 12-day war, when the Iran missile capacity didn't quite reach Israel, didn't quite hit Israel. But the Iranians themselves, they are actually quite transparent. They themselves said that we understood, we corrected ourselves, and we are now ready. Just as they say today, they are now ready for a ground invasion. And if there is a ground invasion, they are ready with a counter invasion. And that counter invasion will most probably, we can never be certain in war, But most probably that counter invasion will take place with an Iranian intrusion, ground intrusion into Dubai and into UAE and into Bahrain, because they treat countries which have American bases, because America operates against Iran from those bases. They treat them as hostile territory, not hostile nations, but hostile territory. And they've learnt the art of quid pro quo. You hit our infrastructure, we will hit your infrastructure. You hit Natanz, we will hit Damona. You enter on the ground level, we will hit you back on the ground level. That has been now the pattern of this conflict for 4 weeks.
So, in your opinion, why do these GCC countries continue to be so firmly aligned with the United States of America? Do you think this is more to do with Shia-Sunni issue or pure American interests of the kingdoms they entertain?
I think they took a decision some time ago. I think this is all resonates with Camp David, which is a long while ago, when Egypt took the decision and turned what would be called 180 degrees away from their anti-American stance. Since then, in a step-by-step development, the Gulf at least has convinced itself that the American security umbrella was invincible, that it was the ultimate security that could be provided, and they paid very, very serious money in order to get this umbrella. Today, they are realizing that the umbrella proved to be was overpriced and underperforming. In fact, Israel is discovering that the great THAAD missiles could not protect Dimona, and they've ordered an inquiry. They are stunned too. So the Iranian capacity to create their series of missiles which could penetrate and devastate Israeli cities and key Israeli points, if they hit desalination plants in Iran, they promised to hit them back. Every single American base has been hit in that region. American soldiers who were based in that, many American soldiers who were based there in that region are now living in hotels. In fact, the Iranians taunted them that now they would probably have to hit hotels. So this conflict has, as I said, changed the nature itself and changed the dimensions of the present and the future.
So Taliban used to say that the Americans have watches and we have time.
Yes.
From your perspective, sir, if there is ground invasion, if there are boots on the ground, will it be closer to what we saw in Afghanistan, Iraq, or Vietnam?
This is an amphibian invasion. This will be an invasion from the sea, right? And the record of amphibian invasions, whether you go to the Second World War, whether you go to the First World War, whether you go to any conflict,
Churchillian mistake?
see that the price, sorry?
Churchillian mistake?
The
Churchillian mistake, do you think that the Trump can do the Churchillian mistake, Gallipoli sort of a thing?
Oh, Gallipoli, absolutely. Where Kemal Ataturk, defeated the British Empire and set back, and Churchill lost his job.
Yes.
So, you will see that the cost, what is the price that the American public opinion is ready to pay for a conflict which it knew nothing about, for which it had not been prepared, and which at this moment it does not support. So, and I don't think the appetite, if people believe that they are fighting a just war in the American interest, then their capacity to absorb losses, because losses represent sacrifice for the nation, which is the highest kind of sacrifice. And people show that. Americans will show that. But if they believe that the purpose of the war itself was flawed or was mistaken, then their capacity to pay the price diminishes. It goes down. And hence, I think that must be of serious worry to the White House just now, because President Trump lives in a democracy.
So how badly is American standing damaged in the global order? And secondly, what is your assessment of Trump's so close ideological alignment with Netanyahu? how do you place it? How do you put it in words? Why has that happened?
Well, the alignment with Israel,
Yes.
really, rather than a prime minister, has been very fundamental to President Trump's view of the world, and he has never hidden it, that Israel's interests are his interests. But every single president of America since the birth of Israel has supported Israel. But every single president of America has also weighed the genuine calculus of cause and effect. Will this war leave Israel more secure or less secure? In the last 3 years, on the day that Hamas terrorism hit Israel, the world was with Israel.
Yes.
But after after Gaza, which was turned into rubble and 75,000 dead, after the present invasion of Lebanon, after the war on Iran, public opinion in Europe is not Shia or Sunni. Why is public opinion in Europe turned? Why is today Poland telling America that it cannot send weapons to West Asia? Why is Spain's prime minister saying that this war is illegal and he won't allow American warplanes to use Spain as a base? Why does every single member of NATO, the fundamental American alliance after World War II, refuse to join this war? Because they know that there is something flawed in the objectives of this war. And I think this message will hurt American interests and will certainly have long-term implications for America's standing in the world. I don't think America as a superpower will disappear, but America's standing, as you say very correctly, in the world will not be the same as it was. America's positions will no longer be accepted by its allies as immediately or acceptable without question.
And lastly, sir, before I let go of you, who benefits more, the Russians or the Chinese?
Well, I mean, I think the Russians leader, President Putin, if he smiles at all in public, must be doing so, because suddenly he's getting more money for less oil. Even if today the cost of his war with Ukraine remain punishing, but today suddenly, what has been the outcome of this war so far? Sanctions on Russian oil lifted. Sanctions on Iran's oil lifted. What is America's
So the net outcome
demand?
is there was no tax if you pass through the Strait of Hormuz.
Yes.
Now you will have a tax. So this war has ended up creating a tax.
It's in fact enriching Iran. And I was just going to come to that. Today, Chinese technology, which we know is being used by Iran for its weaponry, will be in demand. One of the greatest losses that you will see, one of the greatest setbacks that you will see is to the American arms industry. The American arms industry, suddenly the S-500s of Russia will find a bigger market. India's BrahMos missiles will find a bigger market. Chinese planes and missiles will find a bigger market, because even the F-35s have proved to be vulnerable to Iranian missiles and drones. $25,000 drones against $3 million and $4 million interceptors. Where's the math? So I think the implications of this conflict will stretch far into not just this year, but far into the coming decade.
So thank you so much for making time for News9. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
So
Thank you.
thank you. So we had M.J. Akbar, former Minister of State for External Affairs, with us decoding as to what is happening in West Asia, why Americans have made fundamentally one of the biggest mistakes of this century, and how Iran, in a way they have resisted the American onslaught, have redefined the grammar of, I would say, what a victory would be, which is they don't need to win, they only need to resist to win. But well, that's for some other longer conversation. It's time for a break. I'll come back and in On Point 2 we'll decode Pete Hegseth, who says if Iran doesn't make a deal, the war continues.
What do you think?
तुम नहीं समझोगे।
The new Skoda Kushaq, easy to love. Skoda.
हमें स्वस्थ रखने वाली सारी चीजें ज्यादातर शुद्ध होनी चाहिए। सूर्य की किरणें और स्वच्छ पानी, वैसा ही है लाइन अरेबियन डेट्स और अब लाइन लाइना डेट्स। इसमें फाइबर्स और विटामिन भी कुदरती हैं, जो देता है स्वास्थ्य भी कुदरती।
लायन लाइना प्रीमियम डेट्स।
In Kerala, politics turns tense yet again.
Padalindi Makalakka Namaskaram.
Can fate and Sabrimala torpedo politics? Will corruption allegations decide the mandate?
From the ground, the questions that matter. The voices that shape the vote. India votes. Only on News9.
The United States of America has sent a strong message to Iran, with top officials signaling both openness to deal and readiness for escalation. Reacting to the ongoing war, Pete Hegseth said President Donald Trump remains open to a deal with Iran, but warned if Tehran refuses, the war will continue with greater intensity. Hegseth asserted that Trump doesn't bluff or back down, adding that Washington is working hand in hand to secure an agreement.
The latest intel is clear out of CENTCOM. Our strikes are damaging the morale of the Iranian military, leading to widespread desertions, key personnel shortages, and causing frustrations amongst senior leaders. Just last night, we had 200 dynamic strikes alone. Dynamic strike is a strike where a pilot leaves and during their flight they get a new target set based on real-time intel given to them. A new launcher, a new location, a new troop formation. A dynamic target is one that changes while you're in the air because of improved intelligence. 200 dynamic strikes alone, in addition to the pre-planned targets. The video the president posted last night of Esfahan, an ammo depot struck by U.S. bombers. You see, you don't get to see many of those videos because, as a reminder, Iran has still shut off the internet to 99.9% of its population. But if Iran is wise, they will cut a deal. President Trump doesn't bluff and he does not back down. You can ask Khomeini about that. The new Iranian regime should know that by now. This new regime, because regime change has occurred, should be wiser than the last. President Trump will make a deal. He is willing. And the terms of the deal are known to them. If Iran is not willing, then the United States War Department will continue with even more intensity.
In a strong statement of confidence, Hegseth claimed that U.S. strikes are weakening Iran's military morale and that their leadership is under tremendous pressure. He also said that the balance of power is shifting, with the U.S. having more options while Iran's choices are narrowing. Backing this, top U.S. General Dan Kane revealed the scale of ongoing operations, stating that the U.S. has struck over 11,000 targets in past 30 days, including key manufacturing hubs, storage facilities, and research centers.
Air defenders and aviators, as the Secretary talked about, remain vigilant, forming a shield to protect our forces and our partners, intercepting missiles and drones. Together, we continue to deliver precision strikes against key manufacturing nodes, component storage sites, research facilities deep within Iranian territory. And over the past 30 days, we've struck more than 11,000 targets. Given the increase in air superiority, we've successfully started to conduct the first overland B-52 missions, which allow us, as we've said before, to continue to get on top of the enemy. And as the Secretary talked about, switch towards more and more dynamic targets, servicing mobile targets around the battle space. We've continued to do the work against Iran's missile, drone, and naval production facilities, and we continue the multi-domain pressure that we've talked about.
On the question of a possible ground invasion, Hegseth kept all options open, stressing that unpredictability is part of the strategy. He indicated that timelines remain fluid, ranging from weeks to longer, depending on how the situation evolves. He made it clear that any decision on deploying the US troops will ultimately rest with President Trump, with the goal of ending the conflict on American terms.
As far as President Trump and boots on the ground, I don't understand why the base, which they have already, they understand, wouldn't have faith in his ability to execute on this. Look at his track record of pursuing peace through strength, America first outcomes. What he's simply saying, and it's exactly true, and I've said from this podium too, we're not going to foreclose any option. You can't fight and win a war if you tell your adversary what you are willing to do or what you are not willing to do, to include boots on the ground. Our adversary right now thinks there are 15 different ways we could come at them with boots on the ground. And guess what? There are. So if we needed to, we could execute those options on behalf of the President of the United States and this department. Or maybe we don't have to use them at all. Maybe negotiations work, or maybe there's a different approach. But the point is to be unpredictable in that. Certainly not let anybody know what you're willing to do or not do. But if anybody has internalized the lessons of Iraq and Afghanistan, as the first one, President Trump, to call them out for what they are, he's not going to repeat those lessons. And I think I've been very clear about that from the podium.
So the biggest takeaway of the press conference of the Pete Hegseth is that he has not denied that America is not serious about boots on ground operation. On this issue, I'm joined by Vice Admiral Shekhar Sinha, former Chief Integrated Defence Staff and Commander-in-Chief Western Naval Command, and Air Vice Marshal P.K. Srivastava. Thank you both of you for joining me. Let me straight away go to Vice Admiral Shekhar Sinha. Sir, there are two things. Either the America gets out of the war abruptly, the way they left Kabul within 10 to 12 days, or they stay put in the quagmire, what happened in 70s during Vietnam. There was a hour-long press conference by Pete Hegseth. What's your assessment on it as an opening comment?
Well, thank you, Karthikeyaji, for getting me on your show. He is quite clear that if the deal is not made, now what is the deal like that I'll talk in a short while. If the deal is not done, then this will continue. They don't know for how long. Now the troops are being amassed. They are being collected from, from the Southeast Asian countries and some other bases. Mainly that the Commander-in-Chief, the President, the option is available to him. If he wishes to put the boots on ground, he has it available. Otherwise, the Department of War or Department of Defense should not be saying that, sir, let me get the troops from so-and-so place. So now they're all being accumulated in and around that area, so that should the President decide that a ground operation has become necessary, the talks have failed, or they have not achieved their full purpose, then ground operation cannot be ruled out. Now, should the ground operation take place, then obviously they will have to make sure that the all ground fire units, all the industrial complex which manufacture the these barud, gola and all that, they are absolutely taken out of the way. So that is one thing that we should remember, that he is not going to pull out abruptly, because remember that in Afghanistan they remained for 20 years and it was abrupt because they were not left with any option and they had a different regime ready, unfortunately the same one which they wanted to remove, but hand over and leave it to their own fate. This is what it was. But here it is very early days to imagine that they will walk out. Let me just add one point, Karthikeyaji. I have a very different view about what are the ultimate intention. The ultimate intention is to weaken China's manufacturing ability so that, like it imports oil, most of its oil one was from Venezuela, one is Iran, two of the largest oil producing people. He's got hold of the Venezuelan one. He will now, I am sure that in the deal it will be added that they will have partial control on the oil supply from Iranian production lines. And then automatically the Chinese are catching up very quickly. If you reduce their ability in the production or manufacturing, then you're looking at his competitor is actually slowing down and not competing against America right now.
Okay, let me go across to Air Vice Marshal P.K. Srivastava. Sir, you know, whenever there has been a war, or to say that the first TV war for the larger world was the Iraq war. Vietnam was not a TV war, it was a much more of a newspaper magazine war. There was a shock and awe in terms of the American Air Force. But this time the shock and awe has been challenged by drones and lesser and cheaper technologies, with the 1 billion radar, you know, being broken, taken down, EC-3 being down, even the best of missiles not working. Why is that happening, sir?
So thank you very much, Karthikeya. I'm really happy to be on your show, and thank you to my co-panelists. I love them. So now coming to the point, you raised a very good question. Firstly, see, President Trump has got into this conflict or this kind of war without even taking the authorization of his own Congress.
Yes.
Which earlier, Lyndon Johnson in case of Vietnam and George Bush in two cases, that is Iraq and Afghanistan, they went to Congress, they took their own Congress into confidence, and then he launched an initiative. People were convinced what are the options and why are we waging this war. And if you take the little, recently we had some 300,000 places demonstrations, 8 million people participated, and that's a huge number. As far as US or American citizens are concerned, they are not aware why are we fighting this war. And his own counterintelligence officer has quit, saying that we were not threatened. His own chief of intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, has said that there was no threat to America as such. Now coming to what President Trump is saying today, he says that you have two options. He's throwing it to the world. One, you buy US oil, or you go and fight for Strait of Hormuz. Of course, as a commander-in-chief, he's got his options open, but the number of troops he's amassed and the kind of terrain he's going to face in Iran, if he really decides to go for the ground operations, it'll fall short of that. He has all the options. He's one of the mighty ones. But I agree with Admiral when he says it's not Iran itself. It's about China. It's also about dollar supremacy. It's also about maintaining and sustaining the petromonarchies. It's also about controlling the oil, gas, and whatever comes from any of the places he can control. Because once he also mentioned, it's straight up Trump. So the world in general now understands that Trump wants to get over this business. If you put all that together for the sake of his control over the oil and thereby maintaining the supremacy of dollar as an international currency. And also, Karthikeya, he knows that he's under tremendous debt with $40 trillion hanging over the head of Americans. It's a huge debt which he has to manage in case dollar, and China is naturally the first, guilty, you can say, associate in all this, because they were buying that oil in yuan. So as far as operations are concerned, but one must take lessons from the history. If you talk about Normandy landings, they were successful, but at a very huge blood cost. So that will happen in this case also. Admiral knows about it. We all know about it. When you do this kind of landing and the kind of terrain which is there to support them, you will be successful. But all these Marine Expeditionary Forces are for, specific tasks. They are not occupation forces. So there'll be a deficiency over there. President has to build up his options even more strongly. Of course, they are pressurizing. And when it comes to Pete Hegseth, you mentioned one thing. I really do not know whether he's talking like a strategist, because whenever he gives his speeches, it looks like a very excited infantry captain. He looks like that. He talks about we'll bomb into negotiations. We'll do this, we'll do that, we'll change our targets dynamically. Which targets you're changing dynamically? I'm from Air Force. All the targets you're hitting, they're already predefined. Nothing is moving over there. There's no Air Force, there's no Navy, everything's static. And you're hitting infrastructure. So what targets you're saying you're changing dynamically? Okay, that's for the sake of optics of his own constituency. It's okay. But in terms of military terms, there is a deficiency over there because there is a deficiency of aim. What you really want to achieve, people should know in general and understand. Okay, you can have the strategic ambiguity and all
what
that.
people should know in general, sir, is that both Russians and the Americans have murdered Geneva Convention. You know what Russians have done in Ukraine and what Americans are doing there, they are actually murdering the Geneva Convention blatantly. Major General Rajan Kochar also joins me. Sir, do you think that the Trump will end up making a Churchillian mistake? Something which Churchill thought, that the trenches cannot move, so he wanted to connect the entire effort of the First World War of the British and the Allies from the southern part of the Asia, linking from the Sea of Aegean Sea to the Sea of Marmara, through Bosphorus to the Black Sea. Do you think that Gallipoli sort of a mistake can be done by American army?
Thank you, Karthikeyan. I'll be Forge teaches us to speak in brevity, so I'll just give you some crunch points.
Okay.
Let's not bring China into this conversation, because that's a very long, drawn-out strategy. Even after this war, China will remain relevant, and Iran is not going anywhere. So the point is that if Iran was being decimated, then possibly China would have been brought into the equation, but not right now.
Yes.
Secondly, I would like to draw your attention that Iran has taken approval of its parliament to ensure there's this tax which is going to be delivered, or which has already started, is going to be a permanent affair. So my question to everyone, including the viewers, to start pondering is, will Iran go back on this? No. And can America prevent this? No, again another. So now, from Pete Hegseth, what I'm saying, he is a junior Trump in the making. He is speaking all the right lines because he does not want to get sacked. Because in case this entire operation is going to be a failure, the way it is progressing, the first casualty is going to be Pete Hegseth. Let me tell you that. And please remember my words, because Trump has a penchant of sacking people who have not been able to deliver what he wanted to achieve. So now coming to the real question here, and I must compliment you that you have a panel of Army, Air Force and Navy, and let's not...
That was the purpose, sir. Jal Thal Vayu.
Yeah, and let us not denigrate the infantry captain, because the infantry captain has got much more intelligence than Pete Hegseth in any case. So I would...
No, I completely agree with you. What this war has produced is a tax. I mean, the American wanted to create a free passage. Yes. Ultimately, the war has created a tax to benefit Iranians. There was no tax before the war. Now there is a tax after the war or during the war. I mean, this is absurd.
It's not only the tax, Karthikeyan, the entire control of Strait of Hormuz has changed. The entire geopolitics of Strait of Hormuz has changed, because earlier it was international water, it was free flowing, anybody could go, anybody could come. But after this war, it's not going to remain the same. And Trump, you see, we are talking about this marine operation. I've just written an article on that. It's not possible, and I agree with the Air Vice Marshal when he says that you cannot hold ground here at all. You may be able to capture this island. Yes, it is possible with the kind of technology and preponderance of this entire operation can take place, because the marine and the airborne forces specialize in these kind of operations. But you will not be able to retain it for even 7 days, I can say that.
You know, there's also, sir, I'll come back to this. There's also one more thing. Let me just go across to Vice Admiral Shekhar Sinha. Sir, you know, I have been running all these photographs of the beauties, American beauties, you know, USS Gerald Ford, USS Abraham Lincoln. So all of them are absent. Can you just tell us, Mr. Sinha, why are these big naval guns absent from the Strait of Hormuz or the Gulf of Oman or the Persian Gulf? I mean, this is the firepower which the Americans have been projecting in last 100 years. Their 11, 12 aircraft carriers, 13 to 14 billion dollar apiece, and they're nowhere to be seen.
You see, the task which is remaining now doesn't call for an aircraft carrier to be very close to the Straits of Hormuz. Whatever troops and aircraft were required, most of them have been disembarked in the West Asian, the basin. The second point is that right now the aircraft carriers are only acting as a command platform from where they are directing the entire warfare. And as I said, that earlier on some channel, that there are different kind of ships required in that area, which is a minesweeper, mine hunter, airborne assault groups. So they are all there, very close by. Aircraft carriers normally withdraw after the initial shock and awe, which they have done. They have shocked Iran, they have pulverized as far as the entire maritime air power has been used, because by then the land-based flying was a little bit further away, not required at that time. So I think that the requirement of an aircraft carrier to remain in the vicinity, they would have pulled out to about 500-600 kilometers, which is not a very fat lot for an aircraft carrier really. And from there they are directing the warfare, because the commander of the entire task force must be on board. And the CENTCOM people who are in the land-based command headquarters, they are sitting in the CENTCOM office in Bahrain. So I think it is a combination, and they don't have a problem about. Now you see that in spite of they having withdrawn, the bombing in Iran is going on. It is on, and that is what the Iranians are responding to. What the Americans are doing is now, as far as the military manufacturing complexes are concerned in Iran, they are being targeted, and they want to decimate it so that they are not able to replenish the missiles and drones, which are running out at some rate. So I think that to answer to your question is, what is required is there very close by, because you keeping the aircraft carrier close by only for command purposes is not fair, because it might get hit. Though the aircraft carrier of the US has 5-6 layers of air defense, it's quite difficult for even the missiles to penetrate. Okay. So having said that, I would say that a carrier battle group has many other ships on the group, and they are the ones which are closer to the Straits of Hormuz, so that they can intercept the missiles, or they can start attacking when they find that they have complete...
But sir, why isn't America able to clear the Strait of Hormuz? Is it the geography of it, or is it the near impossibility of it? Something with, I said, the Churchillian mistake, They also sent the best of the British Navy, but then they realized that the Turks were actually floating the mines there. So, by the time the minesweepers had done the job, with the current, the extra floating mines would come, and most of the ships drowned. I mean, this is part of history.
No, you have just given the answer to the question that you asked me, because the mines are of 3-4 different types. One is a magnetic mine which gets activated by the magnetic field of the ship, number one. Most of the ships are made of steel. All the ships are made of steel, except for the minesweepers. Minesweepers are made of fiberglass, and therefore they don't create any magnetic field. Number two, they have acoustic mines. They actually, your propeller wash and the rotation of propeller can activate them. Number three are the mines which are on the ground mines. They are embedded in the floor of the sea. And to remove all this, it's a very Herculean task. And I don't think you require a task force. Ultimately they will be mine sweeping, there will be divers, clearance divers, a full branch which is called clearance diving. And minesweepers have got, let me tell you, they have got 100 odd meters of cable, electrical cable running behind the ship. Okay. And when the ship passes that area, they put very high energy electric current, and that electric current actually produces magnetism which goes and activates these mines. So mines will actually explode, but it will be quite far behind. far behind the ship. So this is the process which, not only that, at the end of it, people who have laid the mine, they will only be able to declare that where all they have laid and have we cleared it completely or not. So it's a very long process. So I would think that it's not very easy.
Okay. Air Vice Marshal, Mr. Srivastava, my question to you is, what part of asymmetry in this warfare, in context of Iran, is working against America? They have better weapons, latest weapons, more tech, more firepower, but even then, they have not been able to stop all the attacks. The bases have been attacked, the radars have been attacked, and Iranians have been able to fire thousands of missiles on UAE. But I was just going through data. There are 100 or 150 missiles. They have been able to fire more than 1,000 missiles on UAE itself. Then this is apart from, sir, drone attacks.
So, Karthikeyan, is very well known that Iran was getting itself ready for this kind of day. They knew that this will happen sooner or later. So they were preparing for this for decades, and they concentrated on two kinds of, missions. One is missiles of all levels, all velocity kind of spectrum, and all ranges, and hypersonic, subsonic, supersonic. So they first made them, and they knew that they'll run short of launchers. So they also prepared for launchers. They also went under the two, mountains range which they have. So they have dug deeper, that even if bombs like GBU-57 are dropped over them, they are not decimated completely. They have a good store for them, and in the initial days of the war, they also declared that we are using first the missiles which are not of so good category. So they did that weight game, and they kept on responding. They knew that their only way in this asymmetric warfare is to endure. If they can endure the most powerful, adversary on planet Earth, and coupled with Israelis, it is the greatest force you are going to reckon with. So they never went into symmetric warfare. They allowed them to bomb. They were bombing. I mean, by now, Pete Hegseth said we have bombed 11,000 targets. Yes. And accordingly, Israel has also bombed over 7,000 targets. Yes. So there are no more. And once President Trump himself said there are no more targets to bomb. And second thing was their ability to launch drones of all types. Drones, they make nearly 10,000 per month. That's a huge number. And of all types. So I have seen this kind of warfare in this. You need to just sustain. And now the interceptors will come in play. The interceptors are very costly. If you talk about, the interceptors like THAAD, you talk about interceptors like Arrow 3 or Arrow 2, you will run short of them. You talk about Patriots, PAC-3 or something. They make only certain numbers in a year. As you know, it's in the public domain that they make only 600 PAC-3 missiles per annum. Even if they have also diverted to Ukraine, it is deployed in so many air bases of theirs. So they'll run short of, if Iran endures, they'll run short of interceptors, and that is why they have to become very selective in hitting the targets. And they are now penetrating through the air defense layer. They have the greatest air defense layer as far as Israel is concerned. But it's penetrating through. The reason is that now they have to choose selectively which to hit, which not to hit. And that's a very complex game. And Iranians have been able to hit the early warning radar, which is, you already mentioned, that's about $2.1 billion. So it's a kind of escalation trap which Robert Pape, the Chicago professor, keeps talking about. He says you get the initial success, you remove the leadership, now you feel confident about the bombing, but you cannot bomb the regime change. It doesn't happen. Pete Hegseth said that there's a new regime. I noted that word when he talked about. What's the new regime about? It's when the people have changed. The regime is all about ideology. The ideology persists. The same IRGC will continue. The same bases will continue. The same regular forces will continue. So there's no change in regime. Now it has got a leverage. There is a damage to reputation of most powerful military on planet Earth. But if you really say, in the eyes of the common public, the reputation of Iran has gone up in military terms. We don't like that regime, but you really admire their sustenance. They have some method in madness that they have been able to sustain. Okay. And endurance will be the key in this case. Okay. General Kochhar, two quick questions to you. One, what is your assessment?
do you think that Americans will eventually end up putting boots on the ground despite Hexet, not committing? He said, if our timelines are met, we can also leave. Because if you remember, the spokesperson of the White House said 4 weeks to 6 weeks. So we have crossed 4 weeks and 6 weeks have not been completed. And secondly, he also said, if they cut a deal, we are good to go. So what's your assessment of this press conference?
Karthikeyan, there will be no boots on ground. Because,
no boots on ground?
No, because that would be walking into the trap.
Okay.
And I think there will be very, very heavy casualties on the first day itself when they attempt this kind of amphibious operation in which helicopters will be involved.
Why do you say, sir, heavy casualties when they don't have Navy, when they don't have an Air Force, they don't have helicopters?
Yeah, I'll tell you. See, in the in any assault operation, we work on a force ratio. So when you are an attacker, you always go with a force ratio of at least 1:4. That is, in case a defender has got 10,000, you have to bring in 40,000 troops. A second important aspect is because right now the Americans don't have the force ratio, and the IRGC is there waiting for them. Second is, a very important principle of warfare is surprise and deception. You have already lost the surprise because you have announced your intention. So the enemy is waiting for you. Enemy does not need an air force. It does not need an army. It has got that asymmetrical tools. It has got midget submarines available in this region, and all underground systems are available. And you have your drones, the Shahid drones, which can cause havoc here on the first night itself. So I think the very fact that the principles of war, because whenever you go for a war, surprise and deception are one of the most important aspects, which I think has been compromised.
So you are saying you are saying that the Americans, one, do not have the advantage of surprise, and secondly, you are saying that if they go in, it will be very difficult to hold.
Yes, it will be difficult to hold because see, logistics plays a very important role. They are going to be self-contained for 15 to 30 days because that is the normal way a Marine will go or anybody will go, that he'll be self-contained for at least 20 to 30 days. And this self-containment depends on the type of terrain you have. Look at the islands. It has got no camouflage and concealment in the islands because the moment you go and deploy yourself, you will have to go on ground. You will have to create your own bunkers, your places to get inside, because the attack will happen in the night. And the moment daylight is there, you are exposed, your troops are exposed, and it will be very, very difficult to hide yourself on this island. So you see, all these factors have to be taken into account when you're planning an operation. Terrain aspect has to be seen, your logistics has to be seen, and your sustenance has to be seen. And most important is, it's only 25 kilometers from your Zagros mountains by the crow of flight. And in case the artillery fire, because see, do not discount the artillery fire also being brought on. It's only 5 kilometers by 4 kilometers.
Okay.
The kind of devastation you can carry by your saturation attacks on this small piece of land. See, when we...
So do you think, is it possible, I need to close the show, but I really want to know it. I know it's an off-the-cuff question. Do Iranians have the capacity to launch a ground operation in Dubai, Abu Dhabi, just as a, as a shock to land their soldiers in Fujairah?
Capability is there. It all depends upon the intent, because once you launch an operation inside, the same kind of parameters will apply to them also, because you are in a hostile area.
Okay. Mr. Srivastava, you wanted to say something? I know you want, but only 30 seconds. I really need to close the show. Because
I just want to say that when they go for ground operations, there'll be air operations first. The air vector will come in play and they'll provide the cover, and there'll be continuous flattening of the area. It will not be as bad, but it will be bad, which I agree. And second thing, the naval vector, in whatever form it can come, it will come. So all these things will be taken care of, and the ground. This will all happen together. And there are, today's technology and kind of force levels available, but the numbers are very insufficient. This is not the number. This can be a number to build up a threshold level, but this is not the number for the landing. You need, as I agree with General Koch,